to you, Whiz. Buckley, welcome Security Halt Podcast, man. How you doing?
I'm fired up, bro. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. You're a living, breathing, real Tom fucking Cruise, man. Top Gun. I had to have you on the fucking show. Every kid growing up either wants to be a cowboy, a firefighter, or an aviator. And eventually, you get sorted in the sorting hat and you fall off by the wayside. And some of us become Green Berets, but we always look to the skies, man. We always look and wonder, like, what if? Because that's that's the parallel. That's the opposite side of the spectrum for us. So guys up there flying high, doing the Tom Cruise real deal Top Gun thing. So, dude, excited to have you on to talk about your life, your experiences, and where you're at these days. Because, man, like, you're still crushing life. And that's something that our veterans need to understand, that their next phase in life can be just as impactful, just as exciting as what they did in service, man. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, you're never out of the fight, man. The last breath I take is probably going to be the best day of my life. So I ain't giving up until that happens.
Hell yeah, man. That's exactly what I like to hear, man, starting off, dude. So tell us, man, like, before you became an aviator, before you were a Top Gun, where did you get this idea of serving?
Grew up in South Jersey, South Philadelphia, South Jersey. My brother and three sisters were born in South Philadelphia, and then my parents moved down to South Jersey, where my little sister and I were born. And a typical lower middle class Irish Catholic family, taught service above self. Mm-hmm. And my parents weren't rolling in it by any stretch, so they're like, maybe the military helped kind of pay for college and all that stuff. But my parents were kind of John F. Kennedy Democrats, and believed in the goodness of this country. I'm going to date myself. I grew up in the 80s, and Ronald Reagan, House on the Hill type of thing, and evil Soviet Union. There was clear definitions of good and bad. And then growing up in outside of Atlantic City, my neighbor who lived across the street, I was best friends with the kid across the street. His dad was a fighter pilot for the New Jersey Air National Guard. He flew in Vietnam, and then he flew fighters on the weekends, and he was an airline pilot too. And this guy was just larger than life. So I was like, man, just what a cool thing. I used to sit there and watch war movies with my dad, like the Battle of Midway or Flying Leathernecks or the Bridges of Toko-Ri or stuff like that. So I was always interested in naval aviation. I grew up on the beach on the Jersey Shore, the real one, not the MTV one. And, because anybody can land on a 10,000 foot runway, but, whenever there's something going on around the world, the first question that the president always asks is, where's the nearest aircraft carrier?
Yep.
With 3/4 of the world being water, we can put couple acres of sovereign U.S. territory off your country or pretty damn close. So I was always interested in naval aviation as well. So went to college down here in Florida, down at Jacksonville University, and knew I wanted to fly. But it's funny you brought that up, that everybody wanted to do that, because, when I was growing up, nobody really, fighter pilot, what's that type of thing. And then as luck would have it, my junior year in high school, the original Top Gun came out. So after that movie came out, man, I was furious, because then everybody wanted to be a fighter pilot, literally, right?
Yeah.
So I actually had to apply myself even harder, because when I went to college, of course, everybody in the late 80s, early 90s wanted to be Tom Cruise and be a fighter pilot. And I'm like, well, that's just, thanks God, I appreciate that. So I just had to try that much harder. Because when you get commissioned, I was in ROTC, and you get commissioned out of ROTC, it's mainly based on your grade point average, what you select. So I got the gouge, right? A buddy of mine who went before me, he's like, dude, poli-sci, skate on by, get to fly. So I was a political science major. I partied my ass off in college, but I got good grades.
Yeah.
And I remember some of my buddies who listened to the Navy's lies, right? When we were in ROTC, the instructors were like, oh, if you want to be Tom Cruise and be a fighter pilot, you got to be an engineer, aerospace, mechanical, physics. I'm like, oh, man, I'm in trouble. My buddies were like, nah, dude, I was a forestry major. They're full of it. just get good grades. And they turned out to be right, because I remember some of my buddies spent 4 years in hell, like going through engineering, you know, studying all week, getting 2.0s, and they ended up being boat drivers. So I snuck into, I listened, man. You listen to the gouge. The gouge will save your life. So I listened and went to Pensacola. And, you know, naval aviation is a pyramid, right? You always got to, you know, you're trying to get to the top of the pyramid, because the Navy's got a lot of airplanes and helicopters, right? So, you know, I remember going to Milton, Florida through flight school, and I was the Unabomber. I got a 1-bedroom house, like right outside the gate. Literally a 1-bedroom house, you know, little kitchen, and me and my golden retriever. And I locked myself in that Unabomber house, and I just studied my ass off, because again, some of my buddies didn't listen to the gouge. They got like condos in downtown Pensacola and drank and played volleyball, and they ended up flying helicopters. So, you know, busted my ass and selected jets, and then went down to just outside of Corpus Christi, Kingsville, Texas, where I got to go through jets. But again, it's a pyramid. Because at the time, the Navy had a lot of jets, right? They have anti-submarine jets. They still had the Tomcat. That was the, you know, they had the brand new Hornet. They have jammer jets. So even in jet training, you had to bust your ass to get to the top. So luckily, I ended up being at the top of my winging class, and I selected F-18 Hornets. And yeah, went out to the West Coast of California, and the rest is history.
Hell yeah. What was your career like? Because I have to imagine, like, it never slows down. I've been fortunate enough to know a few Air Force aviators, and it's like,
no, I'm sorry to hear that. They're barely on our side.
They always bemoan anytime they have to take command and they're not flying, and the life's really like, hey, I did this, I suffered for so long, I just want to fly. Like, I don't care about anything else. Let me fly. Was that very much the same culture?
It was, man. I'll tell you what. I remember, you know, because in the Navy and the Marine Corps, you know, we're not the Air Force. We don't have a lot of room on a ship, right? So, you know, flying was like number 7 on my list of things to do as an officer, right? You know, in the Air Force, they have like a voting officer, or you know, they have an officer for everything, right? On a boat, you got 90 jobs. And I remember being the command managed equal opportunity officer. And I remember these 2 ladies, 2 of our sailors, you know, giving each other a massage and birthing. And one thought it went too far. And I'm sitting here at XO's mast, or whatever it was called, and with the XO of the ship, listening to this. And I remember looking at my watch, and I told him, I'm like, you know, sir, I got a brief to fly a mission over Iraq in an hour. He's like, all right, Whiz, beat it. I used to look forward to getting airborne off the boat to relax. You know, flying a combat sortie over Iraq was my form of relaxation. So it definitely, you know, it was fun, but they got their pound of flesh. But yeah, I did too. You're right. It was nonstop. I unfortunately was in the Navy during a pretty brutal time, and I was in the Navy in a pretty brutal time during, or in the most brutal air wing. I was literally, I think I was walking across the street from my initial F-18 squadron to my first fleet squadron when I heard the news that, you know, the first female Navy, you know, the first female fighter pilot, Kara Hultgren, had crashed landing aboard the Abraham Lincoln. And that was my brand new air wing. So I showed up to this brand new air wing to do workups. Now, workups, in order to be ready to go on deployment, you got to do a bunch of workups. You got to go up to Fallon, Nevada, drop bombs, and, you know, make big rocks into little rocks. Then you got to hurry back out to the ship for a month because you forgot how to land aboard the boat. And you're gone more getting ready to be gone than when you're gone.
Yeah.
So during workups, we lost eight aviators in mishaps. I've never seen anything like it. We lost a Prowler where 3 guys got killed. We lost a Tomcat, which was national news. Buddy of mine, Stacy Bates, and his backseater, you know, the one of the good deals of being an aviator. Hey, I need some extra flight time or whatever. Okay, here's my cross country request. I'm taking a jet to go see my folks. So he took a Tomcat to Nashville, hung out with his family for the weekend, and they came out Sunday afternoon to watch him take off. And he did a, shit hot low transition right into the clouds, got disoriented, and came right out of the clouds, pulled about 10, 11 Gs right into a condo. So those two died. People in the condo died. We had a midair over Fallon where a guy died. We had a catapult, a guy go off the catapult on the Lincoln off San Diego at night right into the ocean. So we lost eight aviators before we even turned west to go towards Iraq. So it was brutal. We were the first air wing in like Navy history to be ordered to pull into port and do a safety stand down because they were just like, you guys we've never seen anything like this. And of course it's counterintuitive, right? Because we didn't fly for a week, and we're talking to like, Navy psychologists, whatever. And I'm like, what's wrong or stuff. I'm like, well, I'm not flying right now, right? You're taking us away from doing the things that makes us happy and keeps us proficient. Not having us fly for a week ain't the way to do it.
Yes.
So it was,
absolutely.
Absolutely. It was definitely an interesting fleet tour. So I did a deployment on the Abraham Lincoln, came back, did a RIM pack, which was a 2.5-month cruise around the Pacific. And then I went from the Cadillac, right, the Lincoln, where you got air conditioning and hot and cold water, to the Kitty Hawk, which, I think we took turns rowing the Kitty Hawk. The thing was just old and beat down. But it was, and I go out of my way to tell people, my quote combat sorties over Iraq were without a doubt the most boring flying of my career. We were patrolling the no-fly zone over southern Iraq. I mean, the most exciting part of my combat sorties was landing aboard the boat, at night, low on fuel. It wasn't anything to write home about. And then, I tell people the toughest flying I ever did as an F-18 pilot was getting to go to Top Gun. That was without a doubt the toughest flying in my career. And you should think about it like it should be, right? Because if we go anywhere in the world and we're surprised or we're outgunned or we don't know what we're doing, then we fail, right? The toughest training should absolutely be at Top Gun. We call it going to the mountain, right? You go to the mountain, you get your ass kicked, and you come home in flowing robes to your fleet squadron, to train others. So that was, that was my experience. And then, life is, God takes care of fools, drunks, and sailors. So bases loaded for me. In 2000, I dropped my letter. I said, I'm going to go be a rich airline pilot. All these other guys are getting out. It was like a conga line of aviators going to the airlines to be a rich airline pilot. But I won the lottery in 2000, and the lottery was getting an airline job and then getting a reserve job flying fighters.
Oh, I've heard about this.
Oh, yeah. It's a rod and gun club, man. So I got out. I got off active duty, got picked up by a fighter squadron at a Naval Air Station, Fort Worth in Texas, called the Hunters. And, man, that was just, our motto was, we quit once, we could quit again. So we just got away with so much shit, man. NASCAR flybys, football. I mean, we had a blast.
Yeah.
And we're all high time Hornet guys that, graduated from Top Gun. So it was like the elite. It was the best of the best in this reserve squad. But I flew for FedEx. I got hired by FedEx, and I was miserable, man. I could not. I hated commuting to Memphis and then having a trip that launches out of Memphis at midnight and lands in Scottsdale at 8 a.m, and you got to get to the hotel and try and sleep during the day and then do it again the next night. I was miserable. And most of the guys, I think out of the 17 pilots in my reserve squadron, most of them flew for American, because you're living in Fort Worth and American's right there. So I remember getting back from a FedEx trip one time, and I'm sitting in the ready room, like falling asleep. I don't even know what time zone I'm in. And one of my buddies, he's like, "Hey, Whiz, here's my cell phone." He's like, "Hey, if crew scheduling calls from American, if it says, crew scheduling, pretend you're me, tell him you'll be there in 2 hours." I'm going flying. I'm like, you son of a bitch, man. So these guys were sitting reserve for American and flying and getting paid by the Navy Reserve. So I quit FedEx. I'm like, done. And I went to American. And man, I went through all my training and all sorts of stuff. And then no shit, man. The morning of September 11th, 2001, I'm packing in my master bedroom for my first flight at American. And my bride came in, hold my son, who's 8 months old. She's like, you better come look at the TV. Somebody hit the World Trade Center with an airplane. And I said, I'm a busy woman, small airplane, bad weather. And she just had that look on her face. I'm like, okay. So I went out there and, I saw what everybody else saw. Beautiful day in New York City and it's a massive smoking hole. And I'm standing there going through my mental aviation checklist of how that could have happened. And boom, saw the next plane hit. I immediately knew we were under attack. I ran into the bedroom. It's still in my closet, man. I pushed my American Airlines uniform in the plastic from the cleaners out of the way. And I threw on my flight suit. I threw on my boots, didn't even tie them. I had an old 89 Porsche and I broke the land speed record getting out to Naval Air Station Fort Worth. And I got out there just as they closed it and went to a combat, ThreatCon Delta combat posture. And one other Hornet, one of my squadron mates made it out there. So it was me and Gruff, and called down to maintenance. I said, Chief, what do you got? He said, well, we got four Hornets that are, up and ready. And I said, get them fueled, Chief. And all we had were, poor reserve squadron, Navy reserve squadron in Texas. All we had was bullets. I said, arm them up. And then the other phone rang, and it was the right next door to us was an Air Force Reserve squadron that flew F-16s. And it was the general in charge of that wing. And he said, Whiz, what do you got? And I said, it's me and Gruff, sir. We got 2 Hornets. He said, well, get over here. I got 4 F-16 guys that made it out here, and let's brief and let's figure out what we're going to do. So it was like Lexington and Concord, man. Gruff and I ran next door to the command post, and we're hunched over a table, briefing with the 4 Viper guys, 2 Hornet guys, the general. There's the reports that a plane's missing on the TV in Pennsylvania. The Pentagon's getting hit. I mean, it was surreal. We're like, we need to get fucking airborne now. And obviously the Air Force is rich and they're used to doing stuff like that. Plus the general was obviously in his command post tied into NORAD.
Yeah.
So they got armed and up and ready first. So Gruff and I, 2 other guys got airborne. Gruff and I went to the end of the runway, and the plan was when they ran out of fuel and landed, we'd go ahead and launch. But by the time they ran out of fuel, everything in the country had been forced to land.
Yeah.
So that was my airline career. It was 10 months at FedEx and one day at American and one day at American Airlines. So that was it. So, I reserved bummed as much as I could, because a week after the attacks, I got a photocopied letter from American Airlines HR that said, dear crew member, you're furloughed, which is a polite airline term for you're laid off.
Yeah.
So, wife was waiting tables at an Italian restaurant. I was scrambling because, I'd won the lottery, right? Rich airline pilot. Well, now that career is gone. So, in the background, when I was on active duty and in the reserves, I taught myself how to trade. You don't join, as you don't join the military to get rich. You join the military to serve your country and see the world and, take out bad guys. And so I was always interested in finance and, making a little money here. And, I ain't going to get a military retirement. Let me take matters into my own hands. So But, and I applied everything I was learning as a fighter pilot to my trading. Because when you think about it, trading's a form of combat, right? Somebody's going to win. Somebody's going to get their ass handed to them. Why wouldn't you use the same methodologies and procedures from flying a fighter jet to trading? Having a strategy, implementing tactics, contingency planning, managing risk, all that stuff. So that ended up working out pretty well, because I popped up on the radar of a very large options trading firm headquartered in the Chicago Board of Trade. And they called me up and said, what do you do? Went up there for a visit, kind of showed them, and they said, man, they went mafia on me. I've never seen that many zeros. They made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And, I'm not a Chicago guy, man. I'm a Navy guy and a beach guy with sun and sand. So, and around that time, it's interesting because I got hired by JetBlue after I got furloughed by American. I'm like, well, I can only be a pilot, right? I'm an aviator. I have to fly. So got hired by JetBlue. And I was like, Wall Street or airline pilot? And I'm like, well, this would be the 3rd airline in as many years. Yeah. let's go to Wall Street. So yeah, so went up to Chicago, and the rest is history.
And you had no prior finance experience. You just
Zero, man. Just kind of self-taught. But it's funny, man, because I watch CNBC or Fox Business News or read the Wall Street Journal, and legendary investor, or they use all these terms about people. Yeah. I've met or seen all those people. I've been in rooms with these people. They ain't that fucking smart, man. These people, trust me, or they put their pants on one leg at a time like I do. And we are the smart money. There's no such thing as a smart money, man. I've seen some absolute idiots on Wall Street who can make money in spite of themselves. But it was fun.
Do you think the adrenaline and the risk taking came as a factor that made you want to 100%. I really like this?
Yeah. Well, the thrill of the kill, right? I mean, if you get a good kill, you make money. If not, you lose money, and that ain't nice. So yeah, there was definitely some adrenaline to that.
So it seems that you chose the right gamble. And going into finance, do you think it finally diminished its return as far as the reward and the feeling of I'm engaging into something I really enjoy, or was it still do you still feel like it still gives the same high?
No, well, I'd be one of their senior most captains, but I'm glad I didn't. So Wall Street sucked, right? Because I was still in my reserve squadron when I went to Chicago, and I actually became somebody I used to make fun of. When I lived in Fort Worth, there were, buddies in my squadron who lived in Denver, right? They were United pilots. They'd commute in, and they weren't current, and they'd be like idiots in the airplane. And I lived there, and I flew my ass off. So I'm like, don't kill me, man. You commuters are, slack jawed. And so I had to start commuting from Chicago back to Fort Worth to stay current. Yeah. And I became the same guy I used to make fun of. So going from a fighter squadron where you trust the men and women of that organization with your life, or they're not in it, to Wall Street, where I couldn't trust somebody to watch my wallet for 5 minutes when I hit the head. It sucked. It was a very shitty transition. There was people who would push their own mother in front of a bus for $1. I mean, it just was not a good group of people, to be honest with you. People wear golf cleats to work so they could just step on each other climbing up the ladder. In the military, you get a good deal, you make it, you get promoted or whatever, you put the ladder down, you help your bros out, your sisters out. So I, I was definitely disconnected from my mission, my purpose. And at the end of the day, and I remember my dad, who literally passed away during the time I was making the decision whether or not to go to Chicago or not. And I said, Dad, look at all this money. And he said, Matthew, it's not even close to what it's all about. He's like, be happy doing this. Dad, did he not hear me? Look at all this money. And he ended up being right. God bless him. So it definitely was not a fun experience. Ended up, being disconnected from my wife, my kids. It's definitely a culture of drinking. It's definitely a culture of drugs. A lot of those traders, man, holy shit, they are, they're having a couple tin sandwiches for lunch, and it's definitely a high stress environment,
Yeah. Nothing. It doesn't scream of, positivity and wellness. It definitely screams of high stress, and of course, the addictive behavior and when you're around individuals that make that much money, a lot of horrible, poor habits can be developed.
Some of the most miserable people I met in my life are the richest.
Yeah.
People that own this firm, billionaires, and they were, it's so funny because I've seen memes that say, I wish I could have all the money so I could know that that's not the answer. People are like, literally every problem I have right now could be served by money. But, it's the truth. Once you get on the other side of that and you see how disconnected from any sort of purpose it is, it's pretty humbling. So I got humbled in Chicago, but it all happens for a reason, right? I mean, after a couple, 3 years up there, I think it was, like I said, my wife's from Boca Raton, God's waiting room. It's a beach. It's warm. I said, you know what? These people ain't that smart. I can do this on my own. So we moved down here to South Florida, and I started my own financial company, right? You're never going to get rich working for somebody else. So I started my own firm, and I teach people, how to trade options. I do live trade briefs throughout the week, and I show people, I manage my own portfolio and stuff like that. And that was fun. I enjoyed, I was a flight instructor in the F-18. I was an adversary instructor after Top Gun. So I like teaching. I like seeing, folks do well. It makes me feel good helping others. And then right around 2020, in 15 years of flying fighters, I lost 16 people. And also along the way, I lost 3 F-18 brothers to suicide. One of them, Eric Swenson, Swede, you got a picture right over there. Man, he was a groomsman in my wedding, a Marine F-18 pilot. And, a bride and 5 kids, just decided to, check out on his own. So around 2020, I said, and back in 2020, the number was 17. Uncle Sam was using the number 17. We believe that 17 veterans are taking their own lives every year. And so that's a horror, right? If I don't even like putting this out to the universe, but God forbid 17 children were being killed, not once a year, God forbid, every day, this country would freak the fuck out. It would be a national emergency. We would do something. 17 veterans? So in 2020, I wrote a book called COVID Crash because I timed the market implosion due to COVID literally to the day. And I think we made like $2.5 million worth of trades in a couple weeks. It was obscene. Wow. That goes back to there's no such thing as the smart money. I remember all those idiots, all the legendary investors on CNBC crying, literally like, we need to close markets and we need to, shut down the New York. So I'm like, no. I'm on the other side of your bullish trades, you moron. Hell, I remember Donald Trump. He deleted the tweet. I have a screenshot of it, and it's in my book. Donald Trump, as the market was imploding, he's, stocks are looking good here. I'd be a buyer of stocks. Stocks are fantastic. Buy them.
Best stocks.
Stocks. The next day, the market was open. The Dow went down like 3,000 points. I think we made $75,000 in minutes. It was obscene. Wow. So there is no such thing as a smart money. I bring that up because after making a shitload of money, I remember looking at my wife, Susie. I'm like, we got to do something. Swede. I said, let's start a foundation. Let's try and do something about this veteran suicide thing. And then around that time, the numbers had creeped up a little bit. I think it was 22 a day were taking.
And that's a conservative estimate. That's
well, it's funny you say that, or not funny. 2 years ago, I think it was literally November of 22 or October of 22, 2 small community colleges, Alabama and Duke, did a study with America Warrior Partnership, and they said the number is closer to 44. The most recent government data on veteran suicide is 4 years old.
Yeah.
So California wasn't reporting right. There was all sorts of flaws. Like Uncle Sam was only counting violent suicides. Mm-hmm. So when Alabama and Duke went and interviewed families and stuff, they're like, no, she drank herself to death, or he overdosed
on opiates.
So they killed themselves other ways, not maybe violently. So when I heard 44, I'm like, oh my God, for the love of God and all things, we're going to run out of veterans, man. I think the most current status since 9/11, 150,000 veterans have taken it. It's obscene. So I started a foundation called the Top Gun Fighter Foundation. Why? My firm's called Top Gun Options, big marketing department, right? I'm like, Top Gun Fighter Foundation. So I had no idea what I was going to do to help a veteran from killing themselves. What do you do? I'm like, pay the rent, help them write a resume, buy a suit. Clueless. But as I told you earlier, God takes care of fools, drunken sailors. And around that time, a buddy of mine said, hey, there's a bunch of team guys, SEALs, Special Forces, Green Beret dudes that go to Mexico and they do psychedelic assisted therapy to heal their trauma. And there's a really cool group going in a couple weeks, would you want to go? And I said, man, go to Mexico and do drugs with Navy SEALs? It fucking sounds like a great weekend. Sign me up. Send it. I had no idea what I was getting in. I mean, I had a little bit of idea, but, they give you a brief and stuff. I'm like, okay. And it ended up, it was one of the, don't tell my wife or kids, it was one of the best things that ever happened in my life.
Oh, yeah.
It's tied for first with marriage and having them because it weaves all of them together. So I ended up going, it ended up being Marcus Luttrell. Everybody knows who Marcus Luttrell is, the lone survivor. Jared Taylor, JT from Black Rifle Coffee. Another team guy who was with Marcus. And then Robert Gallery. This guy was an All-American at Iowa, linebacker, and played for the Raiders for 8 years. So he's an NFL veteran with just some pretty, this dude was in a bad place. And man, we met in San Diego. We ended up, the Incredibles, right? We ended up calling ourselves the Unusuals by the end of the weekend. So the five strangers, we shook hands in San Diego because if you do this in San Diego, you're a felon. If you drive an hour south, it'll save and change your life. Go figure.
Oh, yeah.
So we went down to a place called the Mission Within, and we sat Friday night with a medicine called ibogaine. Now, iboga, I-B-O-G-A, iboga is the most powerful psychedelic on the planet. It's root bark from Gabon, Africa, Central West Africa. In the West, and it's got like 13 alkaloids in it. And in the West, we can pull out one of those alkaloids. It's called ibogaine. Incredible for PTSD, traumatic brain injury, and addiction.
Yeah.
Not proud to say I was a drinker, and I don't know if you can be a good drinker, bad drinker. Up to a year, 8 months to a year after getting back from this retreat, I couldn't even smell alcohol. It made me physically retch. I would dry heave. Even if I looked at a bottle, it made me like, I couldn't even, it completely destroyed it. So we sat with ibogaine Friday night, and man, it was, I think Morgan. So quick story, it saved and changed our lives. Marcus got home, and his brother Morgan, also a Navy SEAL, combat vet. It looks like their mom Hiccup. Like she had two of them, Morgan and Marcus. He's like, saw his brother, like, holy shit, man, what the hell happened to you? So Morgan went down there, and now he's got home and ran for Congress.
Yep.
He's one of our biggest proponents on the Hill. He's like, man, it was fucking best ass kicking and worst ass kicking I've ever had in my life. It's like you get hit by a bus driven by God.
Yeah. You can do everything, and I've done everything. Now I can say I've done everything, and everything has helped. Everything I've used and done, talk therapy, EMDR, stellate ganglion block. It's all part of my journey. It's helped me greatly. But 5-MeO-DMT, that experience, and to think that I had to do an underground railroad situation to experience that journey, 5 hours of that journey dealt and cured and healed things that I have dealt with my entire life, that all these other modalities helped a little bit, but going through this journey, man, it's hard to explain to those out there that still view it as this illegal drug that should not be allowed. I'm like, dude, experience it yourself.
Amen. Denny, these are defined as a Schedule I drug, right? No therapeutic use and a high risk of addiction.
Yeah.
Just like the Inflation Reduction Act or the Affordable Care Act or anything, the government names something the exact opposite of what it is.
Yeah.
This was the most therapeutic thing I've done in my entire life, and it's anti-addictive.
Yes.
85% of heroin addicts, after sitting with ibogaine once, 0 withdrawal symptoms, and they never look at heroin again. I mean, it's insanity. But to your point, man, yeah, this whole, it would make me furious that I'm getting on, because so I got home and I'm like, I need to help, because the organization I went with at the time was only helping Navy SEALs. And I'm like, well, I'm an aviator, man. And then there's another veteran nonprofit who was only helping combat veterans. And I'm like, I ain't no combat veteran, man. My combat was a joke. It wasn't combat. but I got a shitload of trauma. I was sexually abused as a child. My sister was killed by a drunk driver. I lost 16 buddies on,
Yeah.
And we as veterans do an awful job of trauma grading or trauma shaming.
Yes. We have to kill that myth. We have to kill that myth, man.
Amen.
Everybody I talk to, they immediately see, oh, Green Beret, you deserve this. I don't. It's like,
yeah, I don't. Exactly.
What you just, same thing, sexual abuse, being raped, being traumatized as a child. That is the most fucking horrible thing to go through.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I got home and I said, you know what? I'm ditching the term Top Gun Fighter Foundation. It's too aviatorish. I said, I want a big tent. I want to help all veterans. And so I called it No Fallen Heroes Foundation, also because of this, because I got home and I called some F-18 sisters and I told them, and they're like, yeah, we'd love to heal our trauma, Whiz. And I'm like, okay, here's what we do. And they're like, yeah, it ain't from combat. It's from rape and sexual assault. And I was like, oh, man. So in the past couple years, I've lost count of how many female and unfortunately male MST victims, military sexual trauma, we've helped heal. Some of these ladies were never even near a front line. But in combat, you expect your enemy to shoot at you and to try and hurt you. You don't expect your squadron mate to hurt you. So sometimes, again, I don't want to trauma shame or grade, but that might suck even more.
Yeah.
You expect the enemy to kill you, not your buddy. So, No Fallen Heroes Foundation, big tent. We help all veterans, man. And we also give healing grants to first responders and also family members. So first responders, a lot of guys and gals get off active duty. They take off that uniform. They don't take off the trauma.
Yeah.
They go home. They put on a new uniform. And it probably adds to their trauma. I have a buddy, 20-year Marine, who came home. He went to Miami Fire Rescue or something. He's like, dude, my Marine trauma is a joke compared to what I saw as a first responder in South Florida. What people can do to a child. He's like, so veterans, first responders, and their families. Gold Star spouses, moms, children, they serve. And they deserve to heal too. So we're kind of a big tent. We help veterans, first responders, and their families.
And that is for the past crucial, couple years, man. So crucial. Our first responders, I didn't know it until I got into this space and started advocating for resources. And I was fortunate enough when I still lived in Northwest Florida to meet a lot of these sheriff deputies and have true vulnerable conversations where they share like, hey, if I even divulge that I'm having a hard time, I'm a liability to the department. I'm gone.
Right.
It's like, fuck.
Correct. Yeah. It's sad, right? Well, same thing on the aviation side of the house. I'm getting close. I might be suing the FAA here because, if I, and I'm kind of out of the closet. I'm completely like, I came home. I've never been a better aviator, husband, father, and human. You're going to have a problem with me doing ibogaine to make that happen, and I can't fly anymore. You can kiss my ass.
Yeah.
And I will tell everybody the number of veteran captain and first officers that are doing these medicines under the radar to heal their trauma is awesome. I have active Leos, man. I have state troopers. I have people that are doing this under the radar to heal. Talk about, in the defund the police and all that bullshit. You want to make policing better? How about you heal these guys and gals?
Yes.
How about you? Would you rather have somebody showing up to a call who's full of empathy and compassion, or fucking somebody loaded up or drunk, or who's thinking everybody hates them? We can reinvent policing, man, with healing those people.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I give the flying public a choice. Would you rather your captain and first officer flying you from New York to LA continue to drink, self-medicate, hide their depression, and hide everything? Or would you rather American Airlines give them a week off to go heal their shit? And I obviously know what the answer is.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's another question. Like, how many of your brothers and sisters on the airline side that is one of the most, I have to imagine, is one of the most stressful friggin' jobs you could have. We see you guys as happy-go-lucky, but you said it earlier, flying back and forth, and having the weight and responsibility of taking that fucking machine that's not supposed to be in the air for that long and transfer all these lives and bring them back down safely.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, how about some of the, man, I've been on some flights and horrific weather or winds. I stop at the cockpit and go, I know what that took, fellas or ladies, and nice job. So we got, tens of thousands of flights every day in this country, man. There are some, they don't get paid, for the boring. They get paid for the sheer terror, right? Bird strike down the engine. I mean, so yeah, and it's interesting because about a year and a half ago, and a little birdie told me the airlines did this. So let me brief you on this. The Department of Justice went to the VA and the FAA, all these letters here, and said, there's a bunch of senior captains that are veterans getting disability. Did they report it on their FAA physical? No. Oh, well, you just committed a crime. And they did this, I heard the airlines, because they're all the senior captains and they make the most money. They wanted to clip all these senior people to hire a 200-hour banner tower for $10 a year. Awful. So they went after like 5,000 veteran pilots who were, claimed some sort of disability with the VA, but didn't report it on their FAA physical. So that turned into a Battle of Britain, and that drove all of this underground even more. Wow. So instead of being open and honest about any issues you're having, now it was a hand grenade in the water, and everybody scattered. So I have no problem, man. I'd love to go testify in front of Congress and be like, why? What are you doing? The potential healing power of these medicines is insane. And to your point, let's be clear for all the listeners and viewers here. There are so many different healing modalities, and you mapped out a bunch of them. You can do hot yoga. You can walk on the beach. You can climb a mountain in Nepal. You can meditate. I like to say radical trauma might need radical healing. Yeah. So this healing, this modality is not for everybody. But, 5 years ago, Whiz, if I heard me using a sentence like this, I'd probably kick my own ass. But the medicine calls to you.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to us talking about this and you're like, the medicine's calling to you. If you're listening to this going, that sounds absolutely stupid, it's not, right? Yep. So it's and my 5-MeO experience, man, that's a whole separate conversation. I think 2 times prior to this experience, I've tried to flip like into the pool as a kid, and I never could do it. I landed on my back twice. As a 52-year-old in Mexico, I did a flip. I did a forward flip in the bed doing the 5-MeO. It was without a doubt the most violent experience I don't remember doing. I mean, they debriefed me later after it was without a doubt the most therapeutic thing I've ever done. But I remember going into the medicine, looking out the window at the Pacific and beautiful. And I remember coming out of the medicine facing the wall. And I'm like, why am I facing this way? And they're like, kind of flip there. So trust, this is not, and it's funny because people are like, oh, I hear the 5-MeO is like a 10, 15 minute experience. I'm like, it's forever. Yeah. I felt infinity. And it's awesome because, at dinner later, we're still debriefing. They're like, do you remember the first thing you said when you came out of the medicine? I'm like, clearly not. They said, you said, I can't wait to tell Susie I love her forever because I finally know what forever is. Because I felt it. Yeah. I felt infinity on the 5-MeO DMT, and it was only now. It was only that moment. There was no past, there was no future, and it was the only present moment, and it was, for lack of a better word, an orgasmic, infinite. Yeah. And it was now. It's not like it got old, right? Like, wow, this has been going on for a while, this awesomeness. It was only then, and I was present. Yeah. But I think that's when the flip happened, was because God, whatever word you choose to use, I choose to use the word God, was like, do you get it? There's nothing to worry about, son. But you got to go back. You can't. You got it? And I'm like, yeah, all right. Now, this is awesome. And I think it was the Apollo 13, man. It was the reentry that I remember trying
to. So funny you say that.
What's that?
Because the way I described it, it was, for me, the best way I could describe the initial letting go was the movie Interstellar, when Matthew McConaughey chooses and he goes into the black hole. That's what it feels like when you surrender and let go.
Love it.
And just find, because you want to go in there with intentions, but you don't want anybody. And I've been doing this podcast for so long now, and interview with people and that share their journey. And even though I'm not going into the experience with wanting to experience what they experienced, you're bringing some sort of awareness of what it could exactly. Yeah. And when you finally let go, it feels like you're finally going. And you know, we had sound bowls, we had, I mean, everything, and it just feels like every sound is vibrating through you as you're being brought into this experience. And then finally, boom, there you are. And
the second you surrender, right?
Yes.
And it's interesting because, you know, in my prep work, and I've changed all of our manuals, because in our prep work, I'm like, you know what? Because they kept saying surrender, surrender, surrender. I'm like, you're dealing with a bunch of alpha male meat eaters. The word surrender, we're like, fuck you, I ain't surrendering. Yeah. I'll fight. Well, guess what, man? You fight with the medicine. First of all, you're ultimately going to lose, and it'll be painful. But I'm like, how about allow or accept? They're like, oh, yeah, we'll change our verb. I'm like, stop telling veterans to surrender.
Yeah.
But to your point, once, you know, what resists persists, right?
Yeah.
And coming in with expectations leads to limitation. So when you go in just clean and you let go and surrender, that's the ultimate lesson I learned, is like, God has this. And it's so funny, whatever word you want to insert at this point, source, creator, light, truth, divine. I've seen the most atheist, agnostic humans on this planet come to the other side and be like, I can use the word God. I'm like, I'm not saying anything. There was something full of love, light, energy. I was part of it. And we all are. I'm like, okay, call it Steve if you want, but call it something.
Yeah.
And to your point earlier, I actually got back from that retreat, and I had to learn a new SAT word that I guess I didn't know in high school, was ineffable. Yeah. Because whenever I try and put into words what I experienced, I fail. I actually feel like I'm failing. I'm like, there's no way I can, as a human, you know, with cave art right now and chalk on the wall here, I could not explain to you what happened. It's a feeling. But, you know, being the change you want to see in the world, I got home, and I've never been like I said, a better father, husband, or human being. Beat the bottle. I ditched it. You know, now if I choose to have a glass of wine with my steak or my pasta, I can do it. Old Whiz, a glass of wine meant the bottle, or two, maybe even three. And now new Whiz is like, I can enjoy a glass of wine, and that's it. Old me, man, I'd be breaking, you know, shit an hour later. So it destroyed alcohol in my life. Like I said, I lost a sister to a drunk driver. I got to experience her again, and recognize that she never left. She's right here. She's on this podcast. I always thought, landing aboard the boat at night, low on fuel in the middle of the Pacific, that she was there, and I was right. She's been my wing woman this whole time. But I've seen, you know, Marcus and JT, they were in it, man. I remember laying there going, I got to help these guys. They just sounded like they were having a tough time. And God was like, Matthew, you're getting exactly what they need.
Yes.
I said, no, God, I gotta roll over and try and help these guys. And God, it was always gentle. God's always gentle. He just kind of gently again, he said, listen, he said, trust me, son. They're getting exactly what they need. Let's worry about you. And then it was just fantastic. Next morning, breakfast. Like, you guys good? And then, of course, they look, their eyes, everybody's look completely different. They're like, never better. I'm like, sounded like you were killing some demons last night. And they're like, yeah, we were. And they're gone. I was like, done. Yeah. So it really, it's been incredible. I got home a couple months later after me, you know, my wife seeing me, she's like, let me go check this out. So she went down with, you know, a couple Navy SEAL wives, I think a Gold Star spouse. And she came home, man. And we're like, wow, this is the way. This is how we're going to end veterans. Yeah. I try 100%. And go on every retreat. But you know, the ones I can't make it on, I guarantee you, to a retreat that I don't go on, there's a random text that says, Whiz, I don't want to kill myself anymore. Or I am a a healed human. So
Yeah.
if this is work, sign me up for the rest of my life to do it, bro.
Absolutely, brother. It's beautiful to understand that the medicine talks back to you and it gives you what you need. Like, it's important to go in there with intentions, but even in my own journey, I thought I was going in there with a suit of armor and ready to kill something, and the medicine showed me a completely different thing that I needed. It's like,
Correct.
this is not what you need.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you need. This is your next mission. This is what you need to understand about you. And when you finally see that, it's like, holy shit.
Yeah. It's so funny, man, because a lot of it's like master of the obvious, but it's not. It's your ego, man. It blinds you to all that. Once you drop that ego and God's kind of doing some scrubbing, you're like, man, I got it, right?
Yeah.
And it's so funny you say that because a lot of people do go in a little worried, right? I'm loaded for bear.
Yeah.
Medicine wants to heal you. It ain't there to hurt you in any way. Knock on wood, man. I haven't had a single grant recipient have anything like even anything dark or whatever. If you leaned into it, if they put light on it, it disintegrated.
Yeah. That was the other the beautiful thing. It showed me something that could have been perceived as this nightmarish, horrible thing, but it was showing a reflection. It's like, this is the part of you. Look at it. Understand this pain. Understand this weird, ugly thing that you're looking at. It looks very scary. But even in seeing that thing, that depiction of this ugly, horrible, demonic thing, I wasn't scared. It's like, this is the part that we're addressing right now. This is the thing.
I love it.
All the bad, all the things that you know about you that you hold on to, because you're holding on to this part. Let it go. Don't be scared of it. And I was just like, okay, all right. Like, this is not something like, I see you now. I see you. You're that part. When I want to do this thing, when I want to just not be the 100% best person that I can be, that's who you are. Wow. Got it. Now I understand. I can let you go, and you don't have power over me. I don't have to be scared of you.
That's awesome, man.
And it was coming up out of that one. I remember looking at my shaman, and he's like, and I share that because after every little iteration, he's like, what was this experience like? What was this like? And I shared with him, like, all right. And we sat down, and he's like, you ready for the next one? I'm like, and it was just battle after battle, but it's not to the point where it was like fear and anger. Like, no, like, showing you the next thing, showing you the next, your next journey. And all these years waiting and learning and studying and having people from Sunstone Therapies and having people that were highly educated and speaking with them, I am so glad I waited for the right person for the right time to do that journey. And if you're listening right now, stay on your path, stay on your journey, be disciplined, understand that when you're ready, opportunities are there. The opportunities to go are there.
Right through the bullseye. The universe, God, everything happens exactly when it's supposed to.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Another sentence, I'd kick my own ass if I heard me saying this 5 years ago. The second you agree, if this resonates with you and you say, you know what, I'm going to do this, the universe heard you. Things start changing. Things start aligning. It's incredible, the swirling that happens the second you say, you know what, I'm going to do this. Shit starts happening. And, closer to going on the retreat, stuff will bubble up, and it's all part of it, man. Yeah. It's all part of that process. Getting back to the scary part, I remember, man, I don't know if I could break it up into halves, but the first half was literally a tour. Mm-hmm. God said, check this shit out. I got home. I told Susie, I'm like, I never have to travel again. She's like, why? I'm like, I saw everything. And then the second half was kind of okay, did you see my cooking? Let's focus on you. But I remember, I don't know if it was towards the end. I couldn't tell time, but I remember like, man, this wasn't scary. This was the coolest thing I've ever, I'm humbled. Tears in my eyes. I'm crying. I'm like, nothing scary. This wasn't scary. A red kind of face came up that, I'm like, oh shit, what is that? Like the fucking devil? And then it just went away as quick as it came. And I'm like, well, that wasn't scary. And then it came back like it heard me. And I just fucking leaned into it. And I said, that doesn't exist. That's not scary. And it was gone.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, I'm like, he's like, nah, man, that's all bullshit. And, you know, at the end of the day, my personal opinion is this is hell. What I experienced was absolutely heaven. And, you know, it was the gospel of Thomas or whatever, or Luke, you know, the kingdom of heaven is inside of you. All of this stuff, all of those answers, everything you and I experienced, it's all in here already, man. I remember God at one point when I was on my knees crying like, dude, I am sorry. I am a piece of shit. I am awful. And God said, Matthew, I don't make imperfect things. He said, let me take all this crap, the alcohol, the drugs, the shame, the regret, the trauma. I got it. Now get up. I don't make imperfect things. We can work on the shell, man, but underneath every one of these things, every one of you, everything that I've created, ain't no flaws in you. So it was the most healing I got 30 years, 40 years of therapy in 14 hours. But again, one more time, if this doesn't resonate with you, don't do it. We treat every grant recipient at No Fallen Heroes, we treat this like a combat mission, man. We brief. There's a couple briefs before, you know, you got, like you said, have some intentions. You got a checklist to go in, not for expectations, but something to maybe navigate or to fall back on.
Yeah.
I went in with 5 intentions for the medicine, and I went in with 5 questions for the medicine. And man, all of them were knocked out. And then, you know, when I was down at the Mission Within in Mexico, the next morning, I'm like, I'm healed. Everything's great. And I remember my guides being like, all right, throttle back, Whiz. 5% is here, the medicine. 95% is the integration. But I'm fine. I think they're wrong. I think it's 99 and 1. 1% is the medicine, 99. You got work to do when you get home. If you go back into you're a clean piece of paper, man. You go back to the same bullshit habits, whatever. The medicine ain't you're not going to want to drink, but if you go back and you falter, you're going to have a tough time. You're getting not one to use a sentence too lightly. You're born again. I came home with a fresh set of eyes and a fresh outlook on life. So, but you got to put in the work, man. And, you know, we have 4 debriefing calls afterwards and group therapy and stuff like that. Because if you don't integrate, like I said, it could be bad. Or if it's not bad, it was just a neat experience. And, you know, I used to think people who journaled were weird. I'm a journaler now. So if this calls to you, start writing shit down, man. Just go to Staples or Office Depot, buy a journal, man, and start writing. Because you're going to be able to see from the time you said, I think I'm going to do this, to the last day you open it and see how far you've come. You're going to see the incredible changes of this stuff. It's, you know, like I said, radical trauma might need radical healing. If this resonates with you, let me know. Like I said, we give, you know, full and partial grants. If you're a self-pay and you can kind of pay to go on a retreat on your own, man, obviously we can hook you up pretty clearly. For the past couple of years, we've been forced, and I'd be furious getting an airliner, man. We'd be forced to go to Mexico and Costa Rica, but thank you voters in Oregon, and thank you voters in Colorado. We've knocked out, in the past year and a half, we've done 3 retreats. We've done 2 in Colorado and 1 in Oregon, and we have one coming up in Colorado in 2 weeks. So we're starting one of my biggest mission objectives, day 1, was healing our heroes at home, and we're starting to do that in those 2 states. I got a buddy down in Austin, Texas, Justin Lepre. They operate under the church moniker, so you could heal in Texas. And I have a buddy who does another church up in it's called Rising Ridge in Oklahoma. So there are other opportunities in other states, but Oregon and Colorado at least are, if you care about the 100% legality of it, it's still illegal at a federal level, but at least. I don't think the DEA is kicking down the doors of I laughed, man. I said it on my Instagram. Our first Colorado retreat, I'm begging, please come raid. Please come raid a healing retreat of veterans, first responders, and family members. I won't have to do another fundraiser in my life. But thankfully the federal government didn't come and do anything. And thank God, I don't care what your political beliefs are. RFK Jr. being very pro psychedelics, JD Vance.
Yep.
I don't know if Pete Hegseth's going to be confirmed. He was on the Sean Ryan show talking about psychedelics, and Sean Ryan's like, I'm an ibogaine 5-MeO. It's
Yep.
So because I got it wrong, man. The past couple of years, I'm like, Democrats, man, hippies and drug rugs, and they're the pro psych. I was wrong.
Yeah.
I've been in DC a couple times. They are in bed with big pharma.
That's exactly it.
COVID shit. The Democrats I got it wrong. They were paying lip service to it. Like, fuck yeah, man.
Yeah.
They're the pro big pharma and anti this stuff party now.
What they don't understand is they want to try to make it. They want to try to synthesize it, break it down so that they can create something and put a patent on it, and then they can say that they have it. Here it is. This is safer for you. No, are you fucking kidding me? This is natural medicine that has always been a medicine. We vilified it. We turned an entire generation of thinkers and great experimenters into friggin' villains. And now we're starting to wake up. Now we're starting to realize that, wow, like this is not only changing lives of veterans, but everyday people can live better lives because everybody has trauma. Everybody goes through something. Exactly. And why not go have an experience that can change you and give you freedom to just be your best self?
I think God obviously knows what, he's doing, because this psychedelic renaissance is being led by guys like you, guys like me, Marcus, and JT. So maybe mom and pop walking down the street can go, well, if these guys and gals are for this, I love my hippies and all that stuff, but Timothy O'Leary, hey, let's put it in the water type of shit was probably just a hair too far. So I think this time around, God said, you know what, let's have these people maybe be the champions. So we got Morgan. We got Crenshaw. We got a lot of support now in DC. I'm not holding my breath. I'll believe it when I see it. I tell people my number one mission objective, besides lowering veteran suicide at the No Fallen Heroes Foundation, is to be gone.
Yeah,
I don't want to be doing this. You should not have nonprofits healing our heroes. Period.
Bingo.
So, but I guarantee you, we're not going anywhere for a while, because when, not if, this stuff gets, the VA starts doing it. Yeah, your appointment for a review for this is 3 years into the future. And, oh, by the way, we just canceled that one, the month before, and maybe we'll do it again. So I know I'm going to have to be around for a while, but I shouldn't be. I'm putting that out there to the universe. My goal in 3 to 5 years is to disband the No Fallen Heroes Foundation. I should not be doing this. So hopefully our leaders step up and lead.
Absolutely, man. Whiz, I can't thank you enough for being here today, brother, and being able to share your journey and for doing what you're doing. If people are interested, they want to get involved and they want to get some healing, where can they find resource information?
Yeah, No Fallen Heroes Foundation, or nofallenheroes.com is still the URL. Go to the top right and it'll say contact us. On the drop down, it says grant request. Even if you can self-pay or partial pay, fill that out, and we'll get you going. If you need a full grant, we'll hook you up. We just ask. It sucks, man, because for a while there, we were giving like everything away, even travel, but guys were kind of getting cold feet, close. I'm like, okay, you're going to have to pay for at least an airline ticket, man. If you're truly destitute, I'll hook you up, but you need to have a little bit of a skin in the game. Yep. Yeah. NoFallenHeroes.com. Or just check out our Instagram, No Fallen Heroes, and we got some great stuff. Make sure you check out, I have a podcast. I got to have you on, man.
Yeah, please. Yes.
The Max Afterburner podcast. Yeah, I'd love to hear, we'll cross. I'd love to hear more into your story, but on the Max Afterburner podcast, we got veterans, first responders, and family members debriefing their medicine experiences. So if this is calling you a little bit and you're looking for more resources, go start. My Max Afterburner podcast, episode 7, is my first ibogaine and toad debrief with the flip in the bed and everything like that. So if you want a deeper dive, go ahead and do that. But thanks for having me, bro. I
absolutely,
appreciate
brother.
it.
Yeah, I cannot wait to be back with you. I'll be on your show. And to everybody listening, thank you for tuning in. And please check out any of the resources and all the links in the episode description. Just pause right now. Go down there, scroll. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, it's right there in front of you on the screen. click on these links, go visit, and start your healing journey today. Whether it's with psychedelics or just conventional talk therapy, stop waiting and start getting better today. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll see y'all next time. Till then, take care.